Welcome. Today we're going to revisit Wabano's model of care and put another concrete example to it for you regarding Wabano programs. As you've probably read by now, but I just want to reinforce it for you again, is that Wabano really serves such a large and diverse Aboriginal population here in the city. So in our clinic alone, we serve over 5,000 clients every year. And then in our other programs, all the way from children and youth to seniors to mental health and homeless outreach, we serve well over 5,000 clients in that as well. So that means that over 10,000 people are walking through our doors each and every year. That means we have a great deal of impact. It also means that we have a great sense of responsibility to create that impact. Our catchment area is large. We're the entire national capital region. So when people come to us, they're not just in our little community of Vanier here. We have this very broad reach. And many of you, I'm sure, are aware that Ottawa has one of the most diverse Aboriginal populations in the country. We have the largest Inuit population outside of the north. We have, in our clinic alone, representation from over 50% of First Nations from across the country. And then, of course, we have the Métis community as well. So the diversity and the complex needs and the unique needs of each of these clients are prevalent for us every single day. This could be overwhelming. This could be a very odd place to start, especially as a new staff. Where do I begin? How do I be respectful and inclusive of all these different people and different needs? Well, what we know is that our elders' words are always true, and we can always go back to our model of care, and it will always meet the needs of you as a staff person, your funders, and most importantly, our clients. So the example I'm going to give you today is of one of our programs in our homelessness team. It was a wood carving group. The wood carving group came about actually because we needed to do addictions recovery. And addictions recovery is a very common program that you will see in community health centers and hospitals and other community centers across the nation. What's the commonality between all of these things? They don't work. We know that addictions recovery is one of the hardest things to create change in. That addiction cycle is just so prevalent, and it goes and it goes and it goes. And so when we knew that we needed to do addictions recovery, we started our group, and we had an addictions therapist, and we had our men's circle, and we were bringing the guys in. These were all men that wanted to make a change in their lives. And we did all of the things that when you look in a textbook, our addictions recovery group would look like. But guess what? We became like everybody else. We didn't succeed. Of that first group of men that came through, I think we had about a 10% success rate. That means that 90% of those men did not stay on their sobriety journey. Well, at Wabano, we don't embrace insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. We know we have to do it differently. We know we need to have impact, and we know that our people are ready to create change. So we go back to the model and we say, okay, if culture needs to be at the middle, what about this mainstream way had culture in the middle? Nothing. So what did our men do traditionally? What could we bring to them that would be creating belonging, that would make them feel good about themselves? And we had an elder say, what about wood carving? And we said, doesn't sound like such a bad idea. Because what we know is that wood carving, when men are working with wood, that first of all, our elders say that you cannot be under the influence. So it's not so much a rule, right? Mainstream would tell you that you create a rule of you have to come in sober, you have to do all these things. But for us, when you're doing ceremony, our people already understand that they must come in a good way. They're being taught something by an elder or a traditional person, so they must come ready to learn. Right? They must come in a place to be able to take that in. And so these men would come knowing that they need to come sober. Right? The other really worthwhile part with this wood carving is that what we found is, talk therapy doesn't generally work for men, not just Aboriginal men, men in general. And so when men work, when they fiddle, when they whittle, when they do all those things with their hands, what we found in this group is that men would naturally start to talk. How's your day been? This really pissed me off this week. I'm upset about this. This was fantastic, I did this. All of this talk. So what we did do there is ensure we had an addictions therapist there, ready to guide that conversation. When someone talks about something hurtful that happened to them this week. You dealt with someone that had a grief happen. You had a therapist there to guide the conversation. And knowing that we always start with this concept of the circle where no one is any better or any worse, right? There's no hierarchy in this circle. We're all equal. And we only see each other's beauty in this circle. That addictions therapist came in with that. Right next door would be the elder providing that support. Next to that would be the men and their colleagues. So all of this beautiful circle coming together to create support. So we did this wood carving group. We did it for the same length of time that any addictions recovery workshop would go for. The only difference here is that we had one major difference. That was in the impact and in the outcome. With this new wood carving group, we had an 80% success rate. 80% of the men who went through that program maintained their sobriety. And they are still within our programs here today, volunteering. Some of them even work for us here today. Culture works. I can tell you culture works. So let's look at this model and actually put it into why that worked. Belonging. We know that you cannot talk to anybody about anything, give them any new information down here until they belong. We can talk about addictions till we're blue in the face. We can talk about sobriety. We can talk about mental health. We can talk about childhood trauma. But if the men don't feel they belong, it's all for naught. So we did things like ensuring it was wood carving, right? How we set up the room was important. So it was a very small room where no one could come in. All of the tools were ready there for them. The lighting was good. We made sure to have a male wood carver. The elder himself was male. So all these men that felt safe and comfortable. They had food, they had water. I don't know if you remember, we talked about the 5 senses. So you go back to, okay, when the men walk in, how do I engage their 5 senses? And they walk in and they can smell that wood, right? They can touch it, it's tactile, but they smell the food coming in, it's welcoming. We make sure that there's water there for them, everything that they could need. Music playing very softly. What do they hear? The laughter of other men as well. So all of those pieces, we had to think about that in a great deal of detail. It wasn't just plunking a table in the middle of a room and letting it happen. There was thought put about to how that room was created to be a place of belonging for our men. Even before that room was set up, relationship building between that coordinator, that addictions outreach worker, and these men. There had to be that safety, that building of relationship before they're even going to come in. Our people vote with our feet. When we show up, we know it's worthy. A relationship has been built there. So all of those pieces came together with belonging. Then you move down into mastery. This is where you could do talking about addictions in that cycle. You can give them now, once the men are feeling here that they belong, you can start to move here, but just going to back up 1 second. Before you jump in on the addictions, you can see in that model that the wood carving model wasn't just about us dealing with addictions recovery. We wanted to give them a new skill that was not shame-based. Right? So when you're learning a new skill about something you feel a great deal of shame about, that has caused not only you pain, but your family pain, that's a really hard thing to look at for any of us. So when you can become a master of something that has nothing to do with shame, but all to do with pride and feeling good about yourself, I'm learning a new skill about wood carving. I learned that I'm good at big pieces. I learned that I'm good at the detail work. I learned that I'm actually a good helper. That there's all these different roles within the wood carving that the men could find and be themselves. And so once you have that, as I mentioned, that talking starts to happen, and then you can start to guide the conversation. Again, no shame-based stuff here. Just dealing with what the men are dealing with and using their stories as teaching other men that they go through this together and how we can move through it together as a community. So that links just beautifully into this interdependence, this understanding that, oh, what I'm going through, what I'm experiencing, is also experienced by others, and we can give back to each other for the benefit of one another. So these men start to actually develop relationships within themselves of learning, oh, what I went through can help you. What you went through can help me. Together we can build community that way. And I can tell you one of the things that's been one of the most touching moments for me at Wabano was at the end of that group, when we talked about those 80% of men that had success, they presented the management team with a piece that they had worked on together. If you would like to walk down to Wabano at the bottom of the stairs, you'll see it there. It's a beautiful wood piece, and it's the tree of life with all animals, sacred animals on there, and it says, Wabano, my place of belonging. And this was a gift that these men gifted back to Wabano for the healing that they had received in this group. Generosity. That generous outpouring of their gift will be here for generations to come, and certainly their health and well-being will be the impact on generations to come. So, one small tweak in addictions recovery to a wood carving creates a big difference. And I really encourage you to think outside of the box and think inside of the circle for how you can make a better world for us here and for the broader community in Ottawa. Miigwech.